Mom, you're exaggerating this. It's just a party. Everyone's going to be there. Brody, you have gone to parties 3 days in a row and come home in the morning. Don't expect me to open the door for you if you leave today. That's all I have to say. He stormed from the living room into his room and banged the door behind him. Brody was my 17-year-old son, and with his teens, he had started becoming more and more aggressive. Things had to always go his way or he would misbehave. Being a single mother, it was hard for me to deal with his anger, and he had begun ignoring my authority. It hadn't been so difficult with my daughter Hannah when she was his age. Hannah was 22 now, and she had moved away when she had turned 20. She was studying music at a public university and performed at small gigs all around Indiana. Her teens had been so easy on me that it had made me expect the same from Brody, and when that didn't happen, it became hard for me to handle him. I made him a sandwich and left it on the kitchen counter with a note. I retired to my room for a good sleep. In the morning, I heard some clutter from the living room and got up at once. When I went down, I was in for a surprise. Brody was sitting with none other than Cole Moore, his biological father, in the living room. My exhaustion transformed into anger with the last few steps on the stairs. "What are you doing here?" "Savannah, how wonderful to see you again." He stood up and came forward to embrace me, and I took a few steps back. "It's not. Why are you here?" "I know, Savannah. I know you are angry and you should be. I just want to be a part of their lives." "There is no way. You can't just come back into our lives out of nowhere." "What do you mean? They are my kids. Of course I can. Besides, Brody seems happy to have me here." "Brody? What? He's our dad, and I mean, why not give him a chance? He hasn't been in your life for years." "But he wants to now. In fact, I'm going to the party tonight, and he's going to let me crash at his place." "What? You aren't going anywhere." "Well, Dad agreed, so yeah, I'll see you later." Brody had found a way out, and he didn't want to stay long enough for it to change, so he got up and left the house. "Savannah, I really want to do this. I've grown up, and I was a kid back then. I'm not expecting you to forgive me. Just let me have a chance with the kids, for them if not for me." "You can visit them outside, not in my house. I don't think Hannah would be interested anyway. It's been 16 years, and Brody was 1. But Hannah, she was 6 when you left. She remembers parts of it, and I had to explain it to her." "Let me try my luck." "Fine." I walked over to the door and held it open for him until he walked out. Cole was my high school boyfriend. I had gotten pregnant at a mere age of 16 with Hannah. Cole's family had wanted me to abort the baby, but since I hadn't agreed to it, they had attempted to be there during my whole pregnancy. And after that, Cole continued dating me, and then I got pregnant with Brody. Cole was extremely against having another baby, and so was his family. I decided to keep Brody, and he broke up with me. With time, he and his family started to become distant. Cole joined a college out of town, and when he left, he wanted to enjoy his life like a normal adult. He blamed him for not aborting Hannah and Brody and imposing responsibilities on him. Eventually, he stopped calling us and had also changed his number. I hadn't seen or talked to him since then until today. Hannah had memories of her father, so as she got older, I had to answer all her questions, which left a bitter impression of Cole on her. Brody never really knew him, so he had been oblivious of his presence. I also didn't want to tell him that his father had broken up with me because he didn't want me to have him. I called Hannah to inform her about Cole, so she doesn't get too shocked with his sudden appearance in her life. As I'd suspected, she wasn't thrilled about the idea of having him back. He had lost her trust, and it would be almost impossible for him to gain it again. Cole didn't come back home until the next evening. "Hi, Mom." He quickly rushed to his room to avoid confronting me. At dinner, when I called him out, he made an excuse of having eaten too much already. It was after midnight when I was reading a book with a cup of coffee in the living room. "Mom, what's up? Are you hungry now?" "No." He came and sat next to me on the couch. "I just had some questions." "What is it?" "Why did you never talk about Dad?" He was never there, so it wasn't important." Brody kept asking me until I decided to finally tell him everything. Since Cole was back in his life, he deserved to know everything. He stayed quiet for a long time, then he muttered a goodnight and went to his room. I decided to give him some time. The next morning, I woke up with the doorbell ringing. Hannah had come home with a few bags. She wanted to stay with us until Cole had left. She was sure he was just here for a while. I asked her to try to make amends with her dad. Perhaps he really wanted to have a relationship with him, but she was sure he had some ulterior motive and didn't want to get hurt because of him anymore. When Cole called to invite Brody to invite him for dinner, I pleaded with Hannah to go with him. I didn't want Cole to influence him negatively in any way. I was sitting in the living room waiting for them anxiously when I heard a car outside. I opened the door and stood at the entrance. Brody was sitting on the front seat and wasn't looking at me while Hannah got down. The car drove off quickly. Before I could even approach it, Hannah came to me, put her hand over my shoulder, and walked inside with me without saying anything. When we were inside, she told me that Cole had refused from having done anything that I told him, and Brody didn't know who to believe. Cole had actually convinced him to spend some time with him and then make a decision. Both I and Hannah spent the night and the morning in anticipation until Brody came back. He got off a taxi and ran into the house. He hugged me tightly, muttering an apology. "What's wrong, Brody?" I asked. "Dad, Cole, he is just a liar. He lied to us, Hannah. He lied to all of us." "What happened?" "Well, yesterday at his place, he told me that he would let me do anything I wanted. I could go to as many parties as I wanted, but I'd have to lie to his girlfriend Shira and pretended that he had always been around and he had been a great dad throughout." "What?" "He was going to marry her because she's rich and her family is influential, but she found out about us and then she wanted to know everything, so he told her some story about how you have been keeping us away from him. He's just a selfish jerk. I know you were right, Mom." I was full of rage. I couldn't believe Cole had tried to come back to our lives just to deceive a girl and marry her. I picked up my car keys and began leaving, but Hannah and Brody wanted to accompany me. I reached his parents' old apartment where his family used to live and where he was staying right now. I noticed that the door was unlocked and I charged inside without ringing the bell. I found Cole sitting with a girl, presumably Shira, in the living room. We had a huge argument, but with my kids with me, he could no longer run from his actions. The girl was furious. She threatened that she would ruin his life, and all of us walked out of the house together, leaving him alone. The next morning, I filed a restraining order against Cole for me and my family. On Hannah's nudging, I also filed a case against him for never paying me alimony. We were content in our lives without him, and though we had our ups and downs, we would never need him. I later found out that Shira's family had filed a case against him, and he would have to spend 2 years in jail. My case was ongoing, and I was likely to win it. Cole would not only have to do more jail time, but would also have to pay a huge fine, along with the alimony he owed me. I would have never gone so far. I'd already forgotten him and moved on with my life, but I guess some people do not deserve silence and need to be silenced instead.